Welcome to UWS Weekly, a show that is dedicated to covering United Women's Soccer, a national pro-am league with your host, Jonathan Ward. Each and every week, we will highlight players, supporters, and staff of the clubs we all pride ourselves to support in North America. The UWS is a league that is committed to advancing women's soccer. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to UWS Weekly, a show dedicated to the best pro-am community in North America and powered by Reboot. Reboot is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to help more kids play soccer while creating opportunities to practice generosity, empathy, and leadership. Check them out at reboot.soccer today to find out more ways to help others in your community. Tonight, I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk to three awesome representatives from the UWS 2 side, Delaware Union Diamonds. Joining me from the club are Associate Head Coach Dwayne Henry, Director of Operations Sebastian Acosta, and Center Midfielder Katie Cordell. Sebastian, Dwayne, Katie, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great for you guys. It's great to have you guys on. Katie, what's good? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And Dwayne, the snow is not helping out your the settings on your computer, but hey, what's going on, man? How have you been?
Hey, I'm snowed in, enjoying my time.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Well, hey, listen, let's go ahead and get started. We'll talk a little bit about soccer and the game that we all love, but let's get into the question of how did you guys get involved with the game of soccer that everybody loves?
I'll kick it off. So I'm originally from Argentina. So I feel like for the majority of the population in Argentina, it's one of those things that you're kind of born into. So I, grew up playing with my friends and things like that. And then when I moved to the States when I was 12 years old, that's when I really started playing. It's kind of weird. And, didn't really play much in Argentina. I played more in the US. And that's kind of how and then for me, it's been a way to connect back to my country to a certain extent. I'm a big fan of Boca Juniors. This side, there you go, right there. Big fan of Boca Juniors, and it's I watch the games every week, and my kids have jerseys and things like that. So it's that's kind of how I fell in love with it.
And Katie, what about you?
I started soccer early. My parents put me in it, I think, when I was like 3, and I just didn't want to do any other sport ever. I didn't play another sport until I was in high school, and soccer's just always been the best.
And Dwayne?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of had the same life story as Katie, that traditional start out as 3 rec programs, and just came all the way through high school, college, and then it kind of came full circle. Didn't do anything else, needed something to do, so I got into coaching, and here I am now.
Well, you guys, Delaware Union has a lot more than just a UWS side, right? There's a lot of layers to this extravagant club. What is the culture of the club like, and some of the best practices that you three participate in to make this club, what it is?
Dwayne, you want to take it? You're technically the longest standing member of the club before the club as well.
Yeah, I guess, I should have said that. I've been a part of the club, I guess, my whole life, with the CDSA and the MOT. I played for both clubs. They ended up merging into one club. So operations are centered in Middletown, Delaware. So that's where that's where we're based out of, Middletown, Delaware. We serve a rec program with roughly like 600 or so athletes in the Middletown, Bear, Townsend, Odessa community. So that's kind of where we center our operations, getting those kids into the discovery program and our recreational program to begin to fall in love with the game, and then ultimately move into our travel program, play high school soccer, become referees, play on our UWS 2 side, and then become lifelong fans, bring their kids back when they have kids and grow older, come back and coach in our club. So that's really what our culture is, what we're centered around. We also do programs with the Special Olympics of Delaware. They come out and use our fields to provide those opportunities to those athletes as well. So we kind of are well-rounded. I probably didn't do us enough justice of what we do, because we do a ton, but that's kind of like the hard points that we do.
Well, Katie, I recall you taking time during the summer camps this summer to be on the podcast for Delaware Union. But listen, tell me a little bit about that story and camps are important to the growth of this club.
Yeah, the camps are awesome. It gives the young players a chance to practice and make friends and just hang out. And it was all Diamonds players running it, which was really cool because I know some of the younger girls look up to us.
And Sebastian, best practices, is there anything that is unique about the club that kind of separates it from other clubs in Delaware or even on the eastern seaboard?
I think we have an approach of not necessarily looking at players as numbers, right? We don't look at the back of their jersey as what identifies them or what defines them. And what we really try to do is find out what's important about the person, right? So that our ultimate goal is to make them better members of society through soccer. So for us, for example, Katie's one of multiple players that play in our club and at the same time also coach in our club. So Katie was my assistant coach last year, and she'll be working with us again this year. And she actually got to coach my daughter in our like U3 recreational program. So that part is extremely important for me. Is can we do something that is community based, provides a competitive environment for all the players, and at the same time it gives you that like feel of when you run into somebody somewhere wearing a Delaware Union shirt, it's like you already know who they are. And for me, I take pride in knowing the majority of the players in our club.
Can I add
Well,
something?
definitely, Katie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that the coaches do a really good job of making sure that you're not just a good soccer player, but you're a good person and that you go out of your way to help other people and make things easier and work as a team.
Well, let's talk about how to make things easier in Delaware. Delaware is not known for its soccer, or at least you wouldn't think of it as a soccer state. But describe the soccer compared to other parts of the country that you guys may be familiar with.
It's a big small town,
tight knit community. I don't know how many people are from small towns, but it's a very tight knit community where everybody knows everywhere. Where we go and play another club, we know that coach. It's not like it's just, hey, show up, play a game. You know that coach. You may have played high school with them. They may have coached you when you were younger. You may work with them in an ODP event. You know them. You may work with them in general. So it's a very tight knit community. We have a lot of clubs for the size of our state. Our state's only 90 miles long. And we have, I would say, 6 clubs at least. And some age group or clubs have multiple teams in an age group. So it's very tight knit. It's very competitive, if you can't already tell. So it's important for each club to kind of have its own, motivation to do things differently than other clubs because it's very hard to be replicated and it's very close.
So seeing that the state is only 90 miles, how many athletes do you as a club serve?
About 2,500, close to 3,000.
So a solid number. And if you think about the total population of Delaware, that's a good percentage, good chunk of children who are having the opportunity to play. Year 2 for you guys coming up in UWS 2 seems as though it's just a blur now, but what are some of the expectations for this year coming off a pretty successful first year?
Yeah. So, I mean, going into the first year, it was a little bit of an unknown for us as to what to expect. The level of competition was very high in our Mid-Atlantic North Conference. There's some really, really good teams there. So going into year 2, they haven't been formally announced yet, but we're bringing in some really talented players. We have a couple players that are committed. We have a couple Division 1 players that are coming into the team. We have a couple Division 1 commits that are going to be playing Division 1 next year that are coming into the team, and we have some returners that are a solid foundation for our club. Katie being one of them and one of the captains of the team. So going into year 2, I think the expectation is to push the boundaries a little bit more as far as the training environment, make it a little harder than we did last year. I think that was part of the feedback, and I think that's part of one of the things we do is we ask for feedback from the players on a constant basis because this was new to us. So some of the things that they said is they wanted the environment to get a little harder, a little more competitive. So it's something we're gonna bring. We're already kind of brainstorming some ideas and things like that. Luckily we already have Katie kind of in the club 6 months early. So a lot of those conversations are going to happen on the field when we're training. So it'll be really good.
So I got to go back to that culture and best practices question that I asked as we started. Would you say asking for feedback from your players to be considered a best practice and part of the culture and community that is Delaware Union Diamonds?
I think it speaks for the club as a whole. Especially when you get to those, I mean, we started with our younger age groups, but especially when you get to those, preteen, teenage age groups where the kids can actually hold a conversation, have played the game and understand. I think it's big, because you don't want to take your team and say, go put them in a state cup environment. And that's not really what they want to do. They all want to play and have fun. So they just want to compete at the level they can compete at. Or if you run a training session and no one understands the drills, well, why didn't you understand you want to get that feedback to be able to make yourself a better coach and to make themselves better as players. And especially for the Diamonds, us being our first year, we had a couple of team meetings with the players just to be able to get feedback, understand what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong. Because sometimes you see it, coaches think they're right, they know they're right, they've done it a certain way, but every player, every team doesn't respond the same way. So I think it's critical that you get that feedback to get that response from your players at the Diamonds level and even at the, U10, U11 age groups as well.
Well, speaking particularly to the Diamond culture, Katie, you had the opportunity to play college ball and you played club this last year, but what does it mean to have the opportunity to kind of sharpen the skill set heading into a college year with a summer opportunity like the UWS 2? And what value does it hold to be able to play and use that time over the summer to get going for the summer and play at a high level at that?
I think it's really important. This doesn't apply to me anymore because I'm old and retired, so I'm just having fun. But for everyone else, I think it's really important to get touches on the ball, because it's not all about winning and losing. Obviously, we like to win, but it's how fit you get and how sharp you are on the ball. So when you go back to your college team or high school team, you're going to be one of the best ones there, and that's really what you should be wanting to gain from this.
So thinking about that in general, Katie, what advice would you give to a younger you or to a younger player who says, I don't want to play UWS because I don't want to get hurt heading into a college season? What advice would you give them to make sure to encourage them to participate?
I don't know. I don't think it's smart to play on like a fearful level. Like if you want to play college soccer, it's going to be rough and it's going to be physical. So I think it would be smarter to kind of get into that in the summer. And I also think if you do a lot of lifting, then your chances of getting injured are a lot lower. So I would say lift, get strong, and play anyway, because if you're strong, you're not going to get hurt most likely.
Sebastian, Director of Operations for the club, what made the club decide that UWS 2 was its league of choice?
Realistically, it was the players. We were looking at some of our alumni, and they didn't have last year due to COVID. They didn't have a season, and so we're trying to think of these players that just graduated, worked really hard to get where they wanted to go, and we were trying to think, what are they going to do? Right, they're going to go an entire year and a half, 2 years without playing. So we were exploring different possibilities to try to get some of these players to play. So we reached out. I think I reached out to Stephanie, and probably within a matter of less than a week, we were pretty much committed and ready to go. Dwayne and I had conversations about it ahead of time. We kind of did all the research. And for me, it was the fact that the league had a development mindset, right? The idea of developing players and have it be that for the players, and that to me stood out.
Dwayne, you're the long-serving member of the club. It seems like the old man on the podium here. What is the mission of the club in general, and what did you and Sebastian come up with as a mission for the Diamond entity as it relates to UWS2?
The mission for the club, it's very simple. It's to find a place for anybody that wants to play soccer, to learn and develop, to find a place for them, whether it's the recreational side, it's the travel side, the representative side, whether it's, again, refereeing or coaching in our club, or again, for the alumni or players that may have not played in our club that want a place to play in the summer. We'll find a place to play. We'll help you develop. We'll get you going. So that's what we kind of want to do with our mission. And then for the Diamonds, seems like our mission kind of changed mid-season, getting player feedback. Obviously we wanted to go out and compete, but again, it's to continue to develop these players and get them prepared for their college seasons. We want them to be game fit going into preseason, so that when we do our own podcast and we reflect on these players, hey, Katie was fit game one, she started, she was successful, or Katie was working back off an injury, we helped her rehab, get some game minutes, she was successful. So again, to develop and then to see all of our players find success, I think that's really the key for the Diamonds.
So it sounds like you guys had you had a set of goals to start the year, but those goals quickly changed based off of the feedback. Let's talk a little bit about those goals. What were the goals originally, and what was the change that was made, let's say mid-season?
Well, I think part of it was out of our control and part of it was in our control, right? So from a competitive standpoint, we thought I still do think we had a very, very good roster. I think we were extremely competitive in a lot of the games. I mean, the first game we were up 1-0 until the last 15, 20 minutes left of the game. And we had 2 or 3 games like that where we were, 10, 15 minutes short of winning. But then we ended up with some season-ending injuries. In the same game, we had 2 season-ending injuries that those players have yet to come back. So they'll hopefully be back pretty soon to be able to play at their school or their high school, and then be able to play with us again this summer. And then we had a few players that originally committed that decided this wasn't for them, kind of thing. So and then I think once that came in, then we brought in some younger players. So I think we adjusted our mindset into, all right, well, if we're not going to, quote unquote, get the results we were looking for, well, then let's adjust, and can we just give the opportunities to the players? So we had some players come in halfway through the year that helped us out a lot, and they each individually had some different goals. And I think that was the big change too, is halfway through the year, we started really focusing on the individual goals for the players, right? So what was everybody looking for? There was some players that were looking for to be seen by college coaches because they were still in high school. So there were some college coaches coming out to our games to watch them play specifically. There's some players that were looking to play specific positions and things like that. So we started really kind of tailoring part of our game plan towards the individual players.
So overall, it seems like the season, in the end, everything came to a good part where everybody was doing what was best practices or doing what was best for each other to help the club and help the community as it is grow. What role does the team play? Let's talk a little bit about the development of the youth program. What role does the team play in the youth program and the development? But also, what about the youth playing into the UWS2 team?
It's such a big part for me. It's basically that's my, I smile every time I talk about this because it's what I want, right? I want our younger players to be watching Katie play, for example. And at some point, and I'm hoping that Katie plays until her 40s with the Diamonds. I'm hoping Katie never leaves Delaware and she just continues to play. But I'm hoping that a player that was coached by Katie, or I'm hoping that a player that watched Katie play at some point gets the opportunity to play with Katie, for example, right? From a community standpoint, we don't really have anything like that else in Middletown. We just don't. So for us, our first game, it was just bringing the community out, bringing all of our players out. We had two of our players kept score, kept stats for us. We kind of trained them ahead of time, and they sat on the bench. When they could, they were in the conversations. They came to practices. They watched practices. We had a couple of younger goalkeepers be able to train with our goalkeepers during practices, and then they got to jump in some of the activities and things like that. So it's just an extension of the youth club, right? It was a way for the pathway to continue to grow and for players to come back, and for Katie it was really cool because a lot of the girls she coached came watch her play.
That's right. And so, Katie, the question coming right back to you here is, what's it like to play in front of your players, to be able to show them that, hey, I got some skill too. I just don't talk the game. I know the game and I play it as well. What's that like?
It's really fun. One of the girls I help coach is my neighbor, so that just shows it's a small town. And so I see her all the time. But it's fun when they come to the games and they cheer you on. It's really cute. And then you get to go to their games and cheer them on, and it just makes a special bond.
Does that help create the community aspect that I think you guys are trying to touch on and grab?
For sure.
What are some of the qualities that you guys look for as it relates to players? Obviously, Katie is not just a good player, but a good person. But what are some of the attributes or qualities that you look for when bringing in athletes to play for the Diamonds?
I mean, right off the bat, it's the personality. That's character, right? So we want people that are not going to. We want people that want to be around each other. We don't expect, nor do we think it's realistic for all these players that don't necessarily all know each other to come in and in the matter of 3 months become lifelong friends and best friends with each other. That's just unrealistic, I think, in any aspect. But we do expect them to respect each other, to enjoy it and have a good time. I think last year we saw it right away. There was players that automatically bonded with other players, and they spent a lot of time. I mean, Katie had a group of people that A, she wanted to play with because she grew up with some people, and B, there was people that she didn't know that she became close with. And I think, going into the tryouts that we already had, and we're going to have a couple more going into the spring, we're going to look for just really good people that ultimately want to get better. They want to work hard. Part of it is, can you play, right? Part of it is that. But at the same time is can you adapt? I look at, do you stand on the field and not become shy? We had a player who was at least 6 years or 3 or 4 years younger than everybody else on the team last year. And one of the things when we brought her out, the first thing we told her, I was like, don't come in afraid, because Katie does not care whether you're younger or not. Like, so that was for her, it was that growing part of it. And but it's basically like, when she's out in the middle of the field, does she look afraid or not? And if she doesn't, she's confident. And obviously players are going to make mistakes, and that's fine. But there's that character. And I think we're up to a point now where we have some of the returners. They're people that we genuinely like and like to be around, Katie being one of them, that their feedback is important too, right? So we have a tryout, and it's, Katie, what do you think? Like, because Katie's probably going to be one of the oldest players we had. So Katie has a lot of experience. And Katie's also part of our coaching staff from a club standpoint, right? So she knows what we look for from a club standpoint. So it's, what do you think? How do you, where are you with this? And it's a good fit. No, it's not a good fit. Here's why. And then obviously Dwayne and I make the decision from there, but it's kind of where it goes.
I also think it's part of that like Delaware mindset too, where it's so close knit, where, you have players from Middletown. You may have players that go to like a private school up north. They may play on opposite clubs, but you know each other, right? You know who the top players are. So I think a lot of it is those top players, if in your graduating class or close to your graduating class, coming back to play with each other to say, hey, maybe we played with each other when we were 9, but let's play again in college and, make each other better. Because if you play in the same conference in college, like you run into each other, it's like, hey, great. Hey, Delaware. But, it's, trying to make the state stronger and make it, give us exposure as well.
Well, let's talk about a little bit as it relates to the exposure of advancing women's soccer. The UWS, we are dedicated to advancing the sport that we all love for our women athletes. Katie and Dwayne have played for the club. You see the club, you play in the club still. Katie, how is Delaware Union and even the Diamonds helping advance women's soccer in the state of Delaware?
Am I going? Okay, I think the club, and I think Sebastian does this really well too. I think he's like so supportive of young girls and women like playing soccer. It's really awesome. Actually, but I just think we have a really good foundation of girls teams. I think every age group has a team or close to it, and most of them have like 2 teams, or some of them have even more, I think. And I think our club is really supportive of young players coming in and moving up throughout the age groups to eventually go on to high school and college.
What are some of the efforts within the community that you guys do? A lot of teams use camps or free programs to get more youth involved. Obviously, you did have a summer camp through the club, but what are you doing community-wise that is involving these youngsters to get them into the game that we all love?
So I mean, we have a good relationship with the school district. 2 of our coaches. We have a lot of teachers that either work in our club or are parents in our club. So we have a really good community within the schools. I coach at a local high school. One of our other coaches in the club coaches at our local high school. So we're all in the community. So that's a big part of it. And we also, one of the things that we started doing in partnership with a nonprofit organization that I started with my wife, we started offering college prep seminars in partnership with Delaware Union and the nonprofit ASPI that I'm a co-founder of. So we started doing college prep workshops where we bring in some of the local college coaches and some of the out-of-state college coaches that we know to talk about the college soccer process and what does it take and all these other things. And that's open to anybody, whether you're in our club or you're not in our club. That was open to anybody. And I think that's the other part of the Diamonds is it's not do you have an affiliation to Delaware Union or not? Right. So Katie didn't play at Delaware Union growing up. She played at a different club. And that was okay. We wanted Katie involved because we knew Katie's dad from being a referee in our club for a long time. We knew Katie from herself being a referee in our club when she was younger. So we had that relationship, and same thing with the other players that we have. We don't particularly. It's not a requirement that you have to play for Delaware Union to be in the Diamonds, but it is a requirement that once you put on that jersey, you are now part of our community, right? So now, when you see a different player wearing a Delaware Union shirt, you have to kind of somewhat engage, right? You have to be. There's that communication happens through. So I think that's a big part of it for us. On top of just being out, we this year with COVID, it's been tough, but in the past we've been in the Peach Festival. Middletown holds a big Peach Festival, parades and all these other things. We were kind of part of that as well.
Well, guys, we're coming up here on the half hour mark, but I want to continue this conversation because I think it's good. But how can people find out more about Delaware Union and the Diamonds and even the podcast that Dwayne and Sebastian host on the side and you guys got going on?
Yeah, so our website's DelawareUnion.com. Our Instagram for the Diamonds and our Facebook is DE Union Diamonds. Our Instagram for the podcast is now The Soccer Podcast, DE Soccer Podcast. And then Delaware Union Soccer on Instagram or DE Union Soccer on Instagram, Delaware Union Soccer on Facebook.
I heard our tables might be together down at the coaches conference too, so I'm kind of excited for that.
We can't wait. Well, we're so excited. We're going to be part of the podcast show at the convention in a couple of weeks. We have stickers, banners. We're doing giveaways. We're going to have a signed jersey by Katie out there. We'll have everything.
There we go.
And for our social media, one thing like for the youth of our club, which was huge this past year, we did goals and saves of the week. We got 2 of those new VO cameras. So we were able to capture footage of our younger players' goals and saves of the week, and the families absolutely loved it. It was good, friendly competition. Grandma in Texas is getting on, voting for their kids to get, our kids recognition. So that's something we're looking forward to building for the future as well on social media.
Shout out to Veo, a partner of UWS this year and last year. So, it's a good little program that you can always use on the go. It's a great little thing to have. Hey, before I let you guys head out this evening, because I know it's late on your end of the coast there, my last question, what does community mean to each of you? We'll start with you. Dwayne or Katie? I was gonna give.
So community to me, it's just, it's the people around you. It's where you are. I'm not from Middletown, never lived in Middletown, but being in the community and just being able to make it a better place, to be able to provide, kids opportunities to play a sport, to become better as young people, because ultimately it's going to make the world a better place. Kids pick up on every little thing that you say. Sometimes we go on tangents and we don't even remember what we say, but that message that you send to a kid may lead them longer in life, to live a better life, to just be successful. I think that's the main goal of the community, is just trying to make it a better place.
Katie?
I would say community is just making like a tight-knit group that's able to rely on each other, and you can give, but you can also take. So for me, I did play MOT soccer, which is what kind of Delaware Union used to be when I was little, when I was like 3. So I was like taking all that in from people in our community, and now I'm giving, and now I'm coaching the 3-year-olds. So it is a really good community, and it's homey. It's nice.
I mean, for me, it's home. I think not being from Delaware, not being from the U.S. originally, to me, it's home. I think I've lived here for 6 years. My wife, 2 kids. My parents moved to Delaware. My parents live 5 minutes away. My dad's a coach in our club. My dad is a referee in our club. And like that's what it is. It's home. I couldn't not be around Delaware Union.
Well, you three, Dwayne, Sebastian, Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to join me this evening to talk a little bit about Delaware Union. Sebastian, Dwayne, I look forward to seeing you guys in about 2 weeks' time. We'll be next to each other, hopefully, and having some fun. And Katie, best of luck the rest of the winter, and as you prepare for the summer of soccer in 2020 in Delaware.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys being on. We'll chat soon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see. Uh-oh. It's not letting me do it. What's going on here? Sorry, guys.
It's the after show.
It is. There we go. I don't know what it is.
Should I leave?
No, I'll get you guys off. That's
Okay.
my job. So no, we're still live, but I don't have problems. That's the fun part. There we go. Katie, saving the best for last. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening for UWS Weekly. You can follow all things UWS and UWS2 on our social media pages and send your questions for future shows as well. Thank you for watching, and cheers, everyone. We'll see you soon.
It's time for a dedicated women's league to fill the gap between college and professional soccer. A league that's committed to advancing women's soccer, focusing on the development of the female soccer player during the summer months, elevating the competition to help each player reach that next level, providing high-level soccer for collegiate players, aspiring and former professionals, and international stars, operating with professional standards because players and fans deserve an exceptional experience, uniting players that inspire and are inspired. We are passionately growing the women's game. The future is bright for United Women's Soccer. It's time. Be part of the movement.